Well, hello, venters. I hope you guys aren't eating too much candy. You know what? I take that back. I don't care how much candy you've eaten. We've got a real advantage this year. Why? Because we already walk every single day. Let's walk. I urge you to up your walking this month for an extra half hour a day. If you're gonna do that, let us know down below. If you're not gonna do that, still let us know that you're going to down below. Let's fake everybody out. Guys, today, I want to talk about a missing 13-year-old girl from Louisiana.
A Pennsylvania house was stormed last night, and in the basement, police found a missing Louisiana girl hidden in a box covered by a sheet.
Investigators say 26-year-old Keyshawn Crumedy kept the girl hidden for days inside his Brighton Heights home.
Last night, I took my granddaughter out trick-or-treating. There was a ton of kids out there, and the whole idea of somebody luring my granddaughter or my daughter to another state to do horrible things to her just sounds really, really scary. This was a multi-state rescue pulled off by the US Marshals Thursday night in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. A 26-year-old named Keyshawn Crumedy was holding her in his Brighton Heights home, and they spoke to some of the neighbors who were just flabbergasted.
We would never think of any so atrocious like that. It's just horrible.
It makes me happy that they were making that the arrest, between everybody for that. It's scary though, just crazy. Unnerving, yeah. I'm glad they got the guy.
And they were extremely happy that they actually saw a huge presence of police, because at first they were thinking something bad happened, like, a shooting or something, right?
An amount of policemen, SWAT, FBI, US Marshals, up and down the road. And then I saw a girl, which looked like a girl, very small, being pulled out and taken to the right, which was where the ambulance was.
And all of a sudden they realized that they saw this extremely small little girl. So apparently she's 13, but she still looks potentially even younger than that. This guy, Keyshawn, he actually lured her by promising her safety and adoption.
According to police, Crumedy met the teen on Snapchat, luring her from Baker to Pennsylvania with promises of safety and adoption. Instead, investigators say he gave her alcohol and edibles, then sexually assaulted her multiple times before police arrived.
Which makes me wonder, what the heck was she going through in Louisiana that she felt like she needed to flee? And then imagine this, you're fleeing to some guy that promises you safety and that he's going to adopt you. So you're thinking this is like a fatherly type, and then he ends up basically abusing her repeatedly. Here was the weird part. Apparently a woman from Washington, D.C. traveled with the teen to Pittsburgh, and the three of them slept together in Keyshawn's basement. In addition to that, they also arrested 62-year-old Ronald Smith.
Police say he and another man drove the girl from Louisiana to Georgia and then put her on a bus bound for Pittsburgh.
What I'd like to know is how the heck the US Marshals were on to them, because apparently the US Marshals tracked them to Pittsburgh, and then they let Pittsburgh law enforcement know to pull off the raid and get the child out of there. I love when you hear stories about this, because it leads you to believe that, hey, children are super important. We're willing to cross every line necessary to rescue children. The thing that's sad is that this is probably the one that we're hearing about. There's probably a ton that we're not hearing about. Now, again, back to what I was saying, when you're taking your kids out trick-or-treating, you don't realize how many kids are straying away from their parents. I think it would be extremely easy for somebody to pluck one of them out of the crowd. I hope that with you it's different. I hope you keep really close track to your kids at all times. The good news with Halloween, at least in the neighborhood that I went to, is it looked like a lot of parents were all keeping track of all the kids to make sure, that they were staying together and stuff. So Just another one of those things that I guess we always had to worry about it, but now it seems bigger than ever. To be honest with you, this is just me talking, this is just my opinion, I'd love to know yours, but that's the thing that scares me about these immigrants that are coming from these second and third world countries. And a lot of these countries where they don't necessarily respect, you know, children, they don't necessarily respect little girls and stuff, it just seems to me like you're gonna start getting a lot more of these sex trafficking allegations and arrests. Oh, by the way, I didn't eat any Halloween candy. It looked good as heck. I had access to Twix, to Snickers, you know, all the usual culprits, gummy bears, Sour Patch Kids. I bet you're nibbling on a Sour Patch Kid right now. I chose to stay away from it. Now, in the past, I would always say, hey, if you're there with your grandchild and you want to have a Snickers together on Halloween, by all means do it. And I still say, by all means, do it. But I ended up having a slice of pizza with my granddaughter, and she didn't care that I was drinking a water rather than a soda. That's the one thing. Sometimes these gripes people say, they're kind of self-inflicted. Is it cool to have a piece of cake with your kid? Yes. Are they going to care if you're trying to avoid sugar for X amount of time for a challenge? Probably not. So that's basically what kept me strong. Also, there's this challenge there. Let me start over. Also, there's this idea that when you get away from sugar for a while, it's easier and easier to stay away from it, you know? The first day that you quit sugar, you see a candy bar in front of you, you're gonna say, well, hell, there's a candy bar in here, someone's gotta eat it, it might as well be me. But once you've been away from it from a while, you can keep it in perspective and say, I already know it tastes good. As a matter of fact, I don't know about you, I can look at a candy bar or a specific dessert and I kind of already know what it tastes like. We know it tastes divine, right? It tastes heavenly. I mean, you have a piece of cheesecake right in front of you, you already know it tastes good. You just gotta have a little willpower. But it's easier to have willpower if you know that one of these days you'll be able to taste that good stuff again. But if you're like me, you gotta get things under control. I've been losing weight like crazy, but I've got a really big goal, and I want to do it in the way that we Venters preach, which is, hey, let's eat reasonably. Let's stay away from all the sugary foods that are addictive. Why? Because they have a real way of tricking the body into believing that you're always hungry or that you have a bottomless stomach. How many of us could easily sit here right now and eat 10 or 15 cookies in a row if we wanted? I have a feeling 100% of us could, right? But none of us are going to eat 10 or 15 carrots in a row, right? So it's not a hunger thing, it's a mental addiction thing. Once you get away from it for a while, you're good. So if you did end up cheating and having some candy, let's try to go right back to avoiding it again. I was always the type that would be like, well, you know, this bag of candy cost $8. I don't want to waste $8, right? But what's more important, the $8 wasted or your health, right? The health is more important. Stephen J. says a lot of them deserve life sentences. D. Blau says, adoption, ? What on earth was she fleeing from? The poor girl. Sarah Rose says, the bigger question is, what was this 13-year-old running from in Louisiana? And why didn't she have anybody in Louisiana to help her from whatever she was running from? Dominique says, 4 adults in this mess just to lure a kid. Jeez. That's what was really scary. If you go up to people in public and you ask them what they think of people like this, they will all tell you to a T that they hate them and they belong in jail, right? But the reality is some people are them. And the whole idea that 4 people all together, including one woman, were willing to conspire simply with the goal to lure a 13-year-old child across state lines. Absolutely crazy. And here's the good news. We complain a lot on this channel about the government and about leadership. The US Marshal, it sounds like, did a heck of a good job. Now, would it have been better if they would have found this child before all the abuse? Yes. Were they tracking her from the get-go, or was she there for long periods of time? I don't know, but we do know the arrest happened last Thursday, so hopefully we'll be able to kind of keep tabs on it. What would you do if you knew that a family member or a friend was this child, right? If your child or family member was in this situation, what would you do? I have a feeling most of us would do nothing, not because we don't want to do anything, right? We might go down to the scene of the crime. We might go pass out pamphlets. Have you seen this girl, right? But in the grand scheme, a lot of us would be hoping and praying that people like the US Marshals and the FBI and the CIA, we would be hoping that our child would be important enough in their eyes, you know, for this to happen. Unfortunately, like I said, there's probably dozens of other 13-year-olds and girls in general that are probably going through this, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's a handful of boys too. Some people in the comments were even mentioning the death penalty. So here's another question I have for you. Are you like me? I actually see those crimes and I say, I'm okay with the death penalty too. Some people say, hey, if we're going to have the death penalty, it needs to be there for somebody that's unaliving people, right? Or a mass, unaliver. But do you feel different? Because I feel different. I feel like, hey, this is a person, I don't want them ever having a chance to get out of jail. It's either got to be life in prison, or if you want to do the death penalty, I'm cool with that. This would be one where I would say I'm cool with life in prison, because I have a funny feeling most of these people have a miserable time in prison. So, I mean, I'd love to know what your thoughts are on that. I think this is one of those where if it was our kid, we would want the death penalty. We would definitely want the death penalty. What was that movie with Liam Neeson? Wasn't it actually called Taken? That movie was really badass because it gave everybody hope that in the future, maybe there would be a badass like Liam Neeson to help us, right? But I don't know, I don't get that vibe. Whenever I see the CIA or the FBI or the US Marshals in work, I don't see the movie stuff. To me, it's a lot of press conferences and updates that seem like they're slow, right? This is one of those things where I would like the updates now. What happened? What were the steps that led up to this? What did he say to this girl? Put yourself in a 13-year-old girl's point of view. She's obviously not enjoying where she lives in Louisiana, and her physical life might be in danger there for all I know. She's talking to some guy on Snapchat, and she asks him about adopting her, or at least she tells him that her life's miserable enough where he brings up the subject to her. And then before you know it, at 13, she wasn't quite smart enough to realize that, hey, this has a lot of red flags, and you're actually taking yourself to the bad guy. That's an absolute nightmare for a parent. But were her parents even involved? Sometimes girls, when they're 12 or 13, they want to run away. I don't know if this is one of those situations, or if it's a situation where the girl literally felt like her life was in danger. I hope it's just not one where her and her parents weren't getting along. That would really be crappy. Hey, I'll call you in 5 minutes.
All right, bye.
Yeah. Telemarketer. No, just kidding. It was Mandy. I haven't told her about my YouTube channel. There's so many things I want to do with the channel now that I have Saturday and Sunday. There's so many fun things I want to do, and I make a promise to you guys that are with me every single day. I'm going to try to make it the most fun channel that it can possibly be for us. If we're not going to ever get 1 million eyes on my channel, then I want to keep your eyes on. And I'll tell you what, I'm just going to bust out the imagination, try to come out with some fun ideas, and I hope that you guys enjoy it. But if you don't, I just want you to know the walk must go on. We have to walk. We do. There were these costumes where people would be like an alien, right? And they're themselves as well, and it looks like an alien is literally carrying them and running off. It's so bizarre. I'm going to try to take a picture online of one of them and share it with you, but I think those are so cool. There was also one where a person was an alligator. I saw so many neat costumes, but no matter how many costumes I saw, it just doesn't compare to the sheer number of kids that were on the streets in the 80s and 90s. We used to have to take pillowcases. If you filled up a pillowcase when you were a kid, let me know down below. If you ever had your pillowcase stolen from you, let me know down below. So, okay, I just came up with a correlation here. Kids that get their bag of candy stolen from them are kind of like the victims of unalivings in real life. You don't think anybody's capable of unaliving you, so we give people credit that they don't necessarily deserve. We walk in areas of town that might not be the best or the safest, at hours of the night that might not be the best either, right? And these kids, they walked around back in the 80s and 90s filled with this giant bag, just bragging like, Mom, I got Twix, I got Kit Kat, I got Reese's peanut butter, right? And they're just sitting there bragging about how many houses they visited. And then before you know it, they go to a dark house where the light's off and they shouldn't be bothering. And a kid goes and ends up pushing them down and running off with their bag of candy. That's what happens in life. You got to keep your head up. Keep your head on a swivel. You walk because you want to be healthy. That way, if you're ever in a grocery store and somebody starts shooting up the store, hopefully you can keep your wits about you and you can get out of that situation. You're going to be better off if you're healthier today rather than less healthy. Or I should say, if you're healthier tomorrow rather than less healthy. So how do we do this? We put on our shoes and we walk every single day. Walking is going to solve the world's problems. I mean, not overnight, but you know what I mean. Anyway, make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe, or don't. I don't really care anymore. But I do care that the walk must go on. And I do care that you're walking. So let me know you're with me. Have a good night. I'll see you tomorrow.